On 12 June 1975, the Allahabad High Court convicted Indira Gandhi of electoral malpractice. The court was hearing a petition concerning Indira Gandhi's election during the 1971 Lok Sabha elections, wherein the petitioner Raj Narayan, her rival candidate in the Rai Bareilly Lok Sabha constituency, levelled 7 allegations against Indira Gandhi, including using government funds. Justice Jagmohan Lal Sinha disqualified Indira Gandhi, barring her from holding electoral posts for 6 years under the Representation of People's Act and annulled her election. The same day, the Congress lost the election in Gujarat to a 5-party coalition that had the support of JP and Morarji Desai. To represent her in the Supreme Court, Indira Gandhi roped in top lawyer of the time, Nani Palkhiwala. It was summer break in the Supreme Court. The vacation bench of Justice V.R. Krishna Iyer ordered a stay on the Allahabad High Court judgment on 24 June 1975, allowing her to continue as Prime Minister. However, she was debarred from taking part in parliamentary proceedings and drawing a salary as a Member of Parliament. The next day, on 25 June 1975, the opposition parties led by J.P. Narayan, Morarji Desai, Raj Narayan, Nanaji Deshmukh, Madan Lal Khurana and several other political stalwarts held a massive rally at the Ram Leela Maidan in Delhi, calling on Indira Gandhi to resign. Notwithstanding the sun spitting fire in the June summer, the huge ground was filled even before the start. Till date, it is termed as the mother of all political rallies. It was here that JP thunderously recited Ramdhari Singh Dinkar's evocative poetry, Singhasan Khali Karo ki Janata Aati Hai.
सदियों की ठंडी बुझी राग सुख बुगा उठी, मिट्टी सोने का ताज पहन निठलाती है, दोरा समय के रथ का घर घर नाद सुनो, सिंहासन खाली करो कि जनता आती है.
The response of the government was to declare a state of emergency. Hours after the opposition rally, on the night of 25th June, Indira Gandhi recommended the imposition of emergency to President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed. Stating that she would have liked to present the information before the cabinet, Indira Gandhi wrote, "Unfortunately, this is not possible tonight as there is no time to lose. Therefore, I am permitting a departure from the Government of India Transaction of Business Rules 1961 as amended up to date by virtue of my powers under Rule 12 thereof." With no benefit of advice from the Council of Ministers, President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed reproduced word for word the draft sent to him in his proclamation. In one sweep, leaders like Jayaprakash Narayan, Morarji Desai, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, L.K. Advani, Acharya Kripalani, Charan Singh, Raj Narayan, Bhairav Singh Shekhawat, Arun Jaitley, Ashok Mehta and all other opposition leaders of any significance were deposited behind the bars.
That it was because the country was in chaos and Jayaprakash Narayan was leading an agitation which was disrupting the basic activities of the country. But the real reason was that there was a court case against her which she had lost in the High Court, Allahabad High Court. And that meant that for some time she could not be a parliamentarian and her political position had become precarious, and she was fearful that other members of her party would try and snatch power from her. She was a very suspicious woman.
On the same night, power supply was cut off to Delhi's Bahadur Shah Zafar Marg, home to the country's largest newspapers, to prevent the printing of the June 26 edition of these newspapers. In other parts of the country, newspaper presses were raided and stopped and bundles of newspapers seized. Only a few newspapers managed to print a few copies that night. For the next couple of days, all major newspapers of the country could not be published. When publications resumed 2 days later, the Indian Express and the Statesman left their editorial pages empty. This move was followed by other publications as well. The government laid out some ground rules for the journalists across the country, and they were told about the guidelines that they should follow. Most of the mainstream media, newspapers and magazines were under the wrath of emergency. The scissors of censors cut through big publishers like Himmat, Janata, Frontier, Sadhana, Swaraj, among many others. Journalists faced harassment, arrests and intimidation. Almost 7,000 journalists and media personnel were arrested by May 1976. One among them was Kuldeep Nayyar, senior editor at the Indian Express and former press secretary to Lal Bahadur Shastri.
एमरजेंसी का मतलब है कि लोगों की आज़ादी ख़त्म हो गई थी, प्रेस को गैग कर दिया गया था और ऐसा वातावरण कर दिया था जिसमें कि लोग चुप से कुछ बोल नहीं सकता था। तो एक किस्म का 1 पर्सन रूल हो गया। तो जस्टिस शाह की रिपोर्ट है, उसने उसमें कहा है कि कोई वजह नहीं थी, कोई इंटेलिजेंस रिपोर्ट नहीं थी, कोई कुछ नहीं थी कि भाई ऐसा डिक्टेटरशिप कर लो या सब बात में ले लो। ये तो एक ही बात हुई कि वो हाई कोर्ट में हारी और उसके बाद उसने स्टेप डाउन करने की बजाय उसने कानून जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन था उसको ही सस्पेंड कर दिया और अपना राज हो गया।
Journalists from the Times of London, the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times were expelled. The Guardian and the Economist correspondents flew back to the UK after receiving threats. Mark Tully, who was then the voice of BBC, was withdrawn by the channel. The suppression of civil liberties and media censorship drew widespread criticism from the international community. Media outlets worldwide portrayed the Indian government's actions in a negative light. As months progressed, the ruling Congress party unleashed relentless oppression on the populace. Over 140,000 individuals, including political adversaries, activists, journalists, writers and ordinary citizens expressing dissent, were arbitrarily arrested and detained. Violations of due process and denial of habeas corpus became widespread, leaving families in anguish and individuals uncertain about their fate. The Maintenance of Internal Security Act, MISA, allowed for indefinite detention without trial, effectively silencing opposition to the government's policies. Passed in 1971, through the 21-month-long emergency period, MISA was used as one of the instruments by Congress government to extensively detain people who did not support its decisions or criticized it. The Shah Commission, which probed the excesses of the emergency, put the number of people detained and arrested under MISA and Defence of India rules across the country at 11,806. At least 30 members of parliament were jailed. Political detainees and prisoners were beaten and tortured. Writer and actress Snehlata Reddy died in prison after she was denied parole for treatment. P. Rajan, an engineering student, was picked up and tortured, leading to his death in custody. Lawrence Fernandez was tortured by the police to reveal the whereabouts of his brother, George. George Fernandez had evaded the police and was involved in underground movement against the excesses meted out by the Congress government. Helping him in his cause was a young RSS pracharak, Narendra Modi, now the Prime Minister of India. In his book titled Sangharsh Ma Gujarat, Prime Minister Modi has given a first-hand account of how he, along with several other RSS pracharaks, evaded arrest and played a key role in printing and dissemination of banned literature against the authoritarian rule of Indira Gandhi. In his book, the Prime Minister mentions how he used a pseudonym Prakash and was on the verge of being caught by the police several times, who were constantly looking for him. He had to adorn different looks, such as a saint or that of a Sikh, to hide his real identity from the police and the establishment. Along with the Lok Sangharsh Samiti, which was a joint forum of those opposing the emergency, government also faced massive pushback for her decisions from the legal community. The first instance after the declaration of emergency came from within her circle. Her own lawyer, Nani Palkhiwala, refused to appear for her in her election petition before the Supreme Court anymore. The then Additional Solicitor General, Fali Asnariman, who had also vetted the grounds for government's appeal, quit from his post 2 days after the emergency was declared with a one-line resignation letter. At least 9 high courts, Allahabad, Andhra Pradesh, Bombay, Delhi, Karnataka, Madras, Madhya Pradesh, Punjab and Haryana, and Rajasthan ruled against the government and in favor of citizens, allowing them to file habeas corpus petitions challenging arrests and detentions under the Defence of India Act 1971 and the Maintenance of Internal Security Act 1971, which were the main tools of Congress government at that time. The judges of these high courts faced retaliation. For instance, Justice R. Agarwal, who along with Justice S. Rangarajan had quashed the arrest of Indian Express journalist Kuldeep Nayyar on 28 April 1976, was demoted to a sessions judge. Justice Rangarajan was transferred to the Guwahati High Court. Another additional judge, Justice U.R. Lalit of the Bombay High Court, who had also ordered the release of a few detainees, was not confirmed as a permanent judge, despite recommendations from the Chief Justice of the High Court, the Chief Minister of Maharashtra, the CGI and Law Minister H.R. Gokhale. Justices D.M. Chandrasekhar and M. Sadanand Swamy, who had quashed the detention of leaders of various political parties, including BJP leaders Atal Bihari Vajpayee and L.K. Advani during the emergency, also faced a similar fate. Justice Swamy was transferred to the Guwahati High Court and Justice D.M. Chandrasekhar, who headed the bench, was transferred to the Allahabad High Court. A total of 21 judges were transferred during the emergency without their consent. However, while the high courts were passing verdicts fearlessly in favor of rights and liberties, a major blow to the constitution came from the Supreme Court in the historic ADM Jabalpur judgment. In appeals challenging the High Court's judgments that allowed habeas corpus petitions, a 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the government. The majority verdict held that nobody could ask for any relief from a court as the fundamental right to personal liberty had been suspended, not even if the order of detention was unauthorized or was malified or a wrong person was detained. The case was heard by Chief Justice of India A.N. Ray and Justices H.R. Khanna, M.H. Beg, Y.V. Chandrachud and P.N. Bhagwati over a period of 37 working days from December 1975 to February 1976. Justice Khanna, however, disagreed with the majority verdict, an opinion that cost him his Chief Justiceship. Despite being the senior-most Supreme Court judge, he was superseded by Justice Beg as Chief Justice in 1977. Justice Khanna resigned the same day. The New York Times paid an iconic tribute to Justice Khanna with the following words: "If India ever finds its way back to the freedom and democracy that were proud hallmarks of its first 18 years as an independent nation, someone will surely erect a monument to Justice H.R. Khanna of the Supreme Court." It was Justice Khanna who spoke out fearlessly and eloquently for freedom this week in dissenting from the court's decision upholding the right of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi's government to imprison political opponents at will and without court hearings. The submission of an independent judiciary to absolutist government is virtually the last step in the destruction of a democratic society, and the Indian Supreme Court's decision appears close to utter surrender. Another draconian measure was forced sterilization. Men and women from marginalized communities were subjected to coercive sterilization procedures conducted without their consent or access to proper medical care. The infamous case of the mass sterilization drive in Uttar Pradesh, where over 6,000 sterilizations were performed in a single day, serves as a chilling example of the disregard for individual freedom and bodily integrity. The policy inflicted deep wounds on the masses, leaving an enduring scar on India's social fabric. With With the entire opposition in jail, Congress government constitutional rampage continued. In utter disregard to constitutional and parliamentary provisions, the 38th to 42nd amendments were passed during the emergency. The 38th Amendment, passed in July 1975, stripped the judiciary of the right to make judicial review of the emergency. The 39th Amendment was brought in August 1975 to ensure that elections of the President, Vice President, Prime Minister and Speaker could not be questioned in any court of law. Any judgment that set aside the election of any of these four functionaries was deemed to be void, and all elections of these four functionaries were always to be deemed to be valid in all respects. The 41st Amendment said no criminal proceedings could lie against a president, prime minister or governor for acts before or during their terms of office. On December 18, 1976, the then President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed gave his assent to the Constitution 42nd Amendment Act 1976. The bill was earlier passed by the Lok Sabha on 2nd November and the Rajya Sabha on the 11th of November. While only 5 members opposed the bill in the Lok Sabha, there was none to oppose it in the Rajya Sabha. Those who recorded their opposition to the amendments were rebels from within the ruling Indian National Congress Party. 21 MPs, all from the opposition parties, were held in jail. The bill, as passed by both the Houses of Parliament, was ratified by 16 state assemblies, all being states where the Congress Party was in power. It included deletion of several provisions, changes in many others, and adding a host of articles to the Constitution. The 42nd Amendment amended the preamble and added the words socialist, secular to describe the nature of the Indian Republic. It transferred 5 subjects from the state list to the concurrent list, namely education, forests, protection of wild animals and birds, administration of justice, and weights and measures. This increased the legislative power of the centre over the states. It authorized the Parliament to restrict or abrogate any fundamental right. It expanded the power of Parliament to amend the Constitution and made it immune from judicial review. It also empowered the President to make laws during the proclamation of emergency without the consent of states. It changed the relationship between the executive and the legislature by extending the tenure of the Lok Sabha and the state legislative assemblies from 5 to 6 years. It curtailed the power and independence of the Supreme Court and the High Courts by restricting their jurisdiction, increasing the age of retirement of judges, and allowing the transfer of judges without their consent. Most importantly, the amendment made the advice of the Union Council of Ministers binding on the President, thereby reducing the powers of the highest office. Before the 42nd Amendment, Article 74, Clause 1 stated that the Council of Ministers, headed by the Prime Minister, shall aid and advise the President in the exercise of his duties. However, it was not binding earlier. This drastic shift in power dynamics was an attempt by Congress government to consolidate control and suppress dissent. "21 months after the imposition of emergency, on 18 January 1977, Congress government. Less than a month later, on 11th February 1977, President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed died due to a heart attack. He was the first president to have died while in office. The then Vice President B.D. Jatti served as the acting president till 25th July 1977. Emergency was one of the most shocking and draconian political incidents in independent India. In the election results announced on 22nd March 1977, Congress government suffered a resounding defeat. The Janata Party, a conglomerate of Congress O, Bharatiya Lok Dal, Jan Sangh and Socialists, secured absolute majority in the Lok Sabha. Morarji Desai was sworn in as the Prime Minister on 24th March 1977. The success of the Janata Party established a non-Congress government at the centre for the first time in independent India, marking a significant turning point in India's political history.
ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूँ, ईश्वर की शपथ लेता हूँ